Welcome to The Authentic Life with KL, the podcast where we throw out the rule book, where we dive in head first to the real and raw, unapologetic journey of living the best life. That includes lots of music. This is your go-to space for empowerment, for deep healing and owning your authenticity like the boss that you are. We're here to break down walls and slay self-doubt. Vibe to the soundtrack of your soul. With every beat and lyric, we'll move through stories that heal and empower. You can live your fullest and most badass life. Welcome to The Authentic Life with KL. This episode of The Authentic Life with KL is brought to you by Break the Silence, a nonprofit created using music as a platform to raise awareness for mental health, suicide prevention, and recovery of all kinds, offering hope and starting the hard conversations to bring communities together. Hey guys, it's Kitty, and today I have with me Brooke Hague. She and I met at the Break the Silence Festival last year, and we've been trying to line up these interviews for a hot second, and now we got it. We did it. So I want to give her a chance to share her story and kind of what she does, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get to know you because, like I said, we keep going back and forth and haven't connected, and we've got it now. So, how are you doing in this season of your life? How's life treating you?
I am doing amazing. Life is going great. I just took a 9-day solo trip to Peru. Not so much eat, pray, love style, but in my own style. So I would have to say it's going amazing. I'm stepping into an era of expansion and growth and wonderful things.
I love that. I bet that's kind of my style, what you did. I would bet.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. There were some very scary moments, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of spiritual awakening and energy in Peru.
Yes, there is. I went out to Barranco, Lima, Peru, and I stayed in a small bohemian art district. And then I went out to Huacachina, Peruvian desert, and went sandboarding. So
Wow.
it was very grounding, very spiritual, very amazing. It was amazing.
That's so neat. That I love that. I love the whole travel aspect. That's anybody who knows me knows that's my one of my things, music and travel. Let's do it.
Yep.
So if you could describe this chapter of your life now, what is some description that you would give me?
I would have to say the description would be definitely be embracing possibilities and stepping into an era where I am no longer in my comfort zone. I am fully focused on expansion, and if I'm going to be a little bit uncomfortable, that's great. That's how we grow.
That's on point today. I actually made a post today because I have been going through this stagnant type area in my life to where I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I know I'm doing stuff. Like that's the most ridiculous thing that we say to ourselves. But I was like, no, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's go. Like, let's just go. And I finally have come to that conclusion. And it's like, it's expansion time. Like, either come with me, meet me there, or move in the
Yeah.
nicest way possible.
Yeah, picking up every version of ourselves that was too scared and saying, "Come on, we're going to a new
Yeah.
place."
Yeah. And it's very eye-opening when you look back and you see how scared you were and how small and timid and even on the reflection on myself on it because I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. So when you open up the door to expansion, it's kind of like opening the can of Pringles that's like the can of snakes, not Pringles. And it just everything starts coming out and you have to be uncomfortable to grow. You just have to.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no other way. There's no other way to step into a future version of you to um, take your visions and your dreams and your hopes and goals and aspirations. You can't make that happen unless you get uncomfortable.
It's true. And that is That is one of the most uncomfortable things that I think you learn in your healing or your growth. It's it's so I love my comfort. I really like I like consistency. I like to know what's going to happen, but knowing looking back that that was a cage all along to keep me my nervous system regulated instead of just kind of letting me free is something that's very eye-opening when you look back.
Yes, yes. Our nervous systems love safety. And a lot of that safety comes from our comfort zones and not taking the time to step into a world of the unknown. And I've learned I studied NLP and a little bit in neuroscience, plus my lived experience in positive psychology. When our nervous system is seeking safety, there's no growth. There's no expansion. We have to regulate that nervous system. We have to say, hey, little me, you are safe. You are able to do this. You're going to be okay. And that's how we do it. That's how we get ourselves into those uncomfortable situations to where we can grow.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I know we can sit here and talk about like you just do it. It's fine, just do it. But it's we all know like healing and growing is one of the like most difficult, challenging, horrible, rewarding like times in your life. And I in my group too, I teach just about regulating that nervous system and how horrible it really can be when you're living on that roller coaster of just letting it free, letting it free ball. Pulling you everywhere. It's just you have no anything. And then when you can find that calmness and start to look internal, it's so rewarding.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you look back at earlier versions of yourself, what do you notice now about, I'll say the before, what about that reflection that you see?
So there are a there are so many. Which version of me would you like to start with? Because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of my life, two major pivotal points in my life. I'll touch on those versions of me. Right. So the two versions that I'll touch on. There's a version of me that fell into my addiction and fell into a lot of felonies. We'll start there. My dad had passed away, and the only way that I knew how to fill a void was with drugs. And with that situation, the drugs that I fell into, I completely also I lost myself in a relationship. It was a very traumatic time in my life, and that relationship that I fell into was toxic codependency. It was with somebody that was completely no good for me. And with my choices, I ended up catching 8 felonies and landed in prison. Um, when I started out to grieve for 2 weeks, I thought that I could just party it away and be okay. I'd never lost anyone in my life, and it took me 2 weeks to catch a heroin addiction. Um, that sent me spiraling. Um, I would, I, the me now knows that grieving isn't temporary. It's not something that you can just lock into for 2 weeks and forget about it and be okay. Grieving is a lifetime process. There are still days where I can literally tap in and hear my dad's voice on the phone saying hello. And I've worked through so much of that trauma and so much of the trauma that I went through in my entire life, whether I put myself through or been through with domestic abuse, relationships and stuff. Um, I have learned that therapy is the biggest thing. Healing is the biggest thing. Allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to grieve is 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 how you step forward into a better life and really just, I guess, like you said, grab life by the balls and just keep on going.
Right. It's true though.
And hope it goes away in 2 weeks. I learned it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, grief is something I always tell everyone when we're talking about it because I've had experience in loss as well. And it doesn't go away, you just grow around it. And if you're lucky, you can find some meaning in it and it can actually losing, even though it's a person, it can open up a lot of space to gain new things if you're open to it, you know. And it takes going through it though to like want to, you know, have something else in that space, and it's not replacing it, you know, but it is finding meaning in it, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's going to be times in our lives. And, I wish I could have sat down next to that version of me and told her, like, hey, you're going to go through a lot of grief in your life. You're going to have people pass. You're going to have people leave. You're going to go through great relationships and breakups, and grief is just part of the process. It's the ebb and flow of life. And it's nothing to feel like shameful or like you're to blame over, but it's something that you can grow through and that you can go through and teach yourself and others how to just keep on going without completely self-sabotaging.
That's that's literally where my stuff started. It was like I lost a brother to addiction, and you know, at first I went through all the different things, being mad, you know, not understanding, to understanding and growing, and then knowing I refuse to let people think that they're alone through anything that they go through. And so I think that you can turn those things around, but you do have to go through it. And we often say in the group, grief is love with no place to go, that if you can find somewhere to place it, it does make it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the work that I've been personally doing in my life with healing lately is about finding compassion for every version of you that ever existed.
Mm,
And that goes along with what you said about finding the love, right?
yeah,
We have to find the love and compassion for every version of us that didn't know any better.
yeah. Even the angry parts, even the ones now we're like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, yeah, even the angry parts.
Do you see signs from back then of where you are now, where it's brought you now?
It's funny you ask that, and I'm going to backtrack from that moment in my life just a little bit. Um, when I was a teenager, um, my brother went through a major addiction, and my while he was in a treatment center, my cousin and I wouldn't sit down and play school where they're the teacher and I'm the student and vice versa. We played rehab. Um, we would check clients, our teddy bears and stuffed animals. Those were our clients. We would check them into rehab and we would help them fix their lives. And I really think that is where my passion started, because a couple years after that, I really started going through my own troubles as a teenager. That's where my addictions really started. And then it spiraled into, oh, hey, I have this escape, and my dad passed away. So, I've always had like these moments where like I think I've known my whole life that I've had a calling, and with my entire heart and soul, believe that I went through everything that I went through so that I could help people and be a voice and be a light in other people's lives. That is the only explanation I can think of.
There's not a lot of words that go surpass that. I believe that too. I believe that too with you, with all of us. And I think it's up to us when people talk about awakening. I think that's the awakening moment. It's not, yes, it's some of it's spiritual and that varies from person to person, but I think the awakening is finding that purpose or creating that purpose from what you went through.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when I got sober and I got off parole and I went through the halfway house, a system, and I started an entire life, a career in IT. I still had that passion and purpose. Just didn't know what to do with it yet. I started teaching yoga in the prisons, and I was like, hey, I'm helping people. I'm doing the thing, but I didn't feel it in my soul. It wasn't until um, a relationship that started out great and turned into a codependent cycle and toxic situation, and a near suicide attempt. That is when I had my awakening, was a few years ago, where I was like, I need to help people. I need to coach. I need to tell my story. I need to be out there. I quit an entire 8-year career in IT to step into a role with NAS Recovery Solutions and coaching and helping other people and doing my business that I have with Soulcraft, with my art and tarot and everything like that. Like, this has become my reality now. That awakening couldn't have happened until I hit another situation. I didn't know who the fuck I was and where I was going and what I was gonna do. And that's what truly brought me into my purpose.
I connect with that very much. And I knew we were like-minded. So on the whole spiritual level, you said you did tarot and things like that. I can we talk about when the spiritual part comes in, like you can't really close the door very easy. Like I've always been spiritual, but once I realized, okay, here's my purpose, and then let me just tell this about you. This is what I just had a dream about, and blah 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 blah. Sorry, don't be mad at me, or whatever. It really helps, I think, having the spiritual side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you turn it on, you cannot turn it off. So I used to be a paranormal investigator, and that's kind of where like the knowing of the unseen is there. So growing up in a haunted house and then becoming a paranormal investigator and then knowing that's there totally got me tapped into this other world. Like, what else can I what else can I do to help other people? And that didn't start until I had like my very own, I call them downloads. I had my own download, and it's just been on from there. And some of the tarot readings that I do and the dreams that I have, like, it's so on point that it's spooky.
Understand. I love that. I could talk about that stuff forever. There's certain people I'm connected to and I'll say, I had a dream of you. And then they're like, whoa, this is exactly why you had that dream. And so I'm a dream person very much, but I'm also download. But sometimes I'll just say I had a dream of you because it's easier for other people to understand.
Yeah, yeah. I don't say very often that, oh, I had this download. Not everybody gets it.
So what helped you take the first steps towards something different?
That would be the relationship that I went through, the marriage that I had. I lost myself in his identity. I was not ready to be in a relationship when I stepped into that relationship. I was still heavily codependent, and um I honestly believe that I stepped into that relationship to fill a void. I started to let go of all of my hopes and dreams. And if it didn't align with his, then I would take on his. It was almost like I was mirroring his personality of who he wanted me to be, so much to the point where I even dressed like him. We wore the same style of clothes, the same color of clothes, just everything. Um, I ended up going through a major depression, and it it tore us apart completely, which was probably a good thing. Uh, he cheated on me with somebody, and her and I actually became friends. It was a very, very toxic relationship. He I was gaslit into a polyamorous relationship. Her and I became best friends, and in that, she started opening my eyes to what I was actually going through. He made me deactivate Facebook for 5 years, any social media. I had an Instagram. I wasn't allowed to be on anything else. She helped me get myself back on to social media because she said I really needed to put my art out there. And it opened me up to an entirely new world. I didn't even know that markets existed. I felt like I was under a rock. I was like, there is this entire community and world of people that that spark my soul. And I've been under a rock for 5 years. And who am I now? It got to a point where I I I had a realization it wasn't going anywhere. It was time for me to go, but I didn't know how to leave. I was scared. I didn't know where I was going to take my daughter and I. I had no idea what to do next. I didn't know who I was or what to do without this man. Um, I went on a sand dune trip in Hot Spring to Crestone, Colorado. And I'm not sure if you've heard, but Crestone is a spiritual mecca in the United States. There's tons of different energies and temples, Buddhist temples, and different areas up there that are very sacred. And I went up there and I was sitting in the hot springs and I was like, I gotta, I gotta change my life. I gotta leave. I have to get out of that house. Um, right before that happened, I was driving on I-70 and I punched the gas. I was going about 100 miles an hour around a corner near Idaho Springs, and I was just going to keep going straight off the cliff. I stopped myself last minute, and my only thought was, what will my daughter and my dogs do without me? And I pulled over and I slept in my car. Um, those two situations back to back, almost near suicide, and then sitting in those hot springs and just the sudden realization, like, just apply for apartment and go.
Right.
It just clicked. And I went home and I pulled my daughter aside. I said, "We're leaving. I don't know where we're going, but we're leaving." And I had an apartment for us within that week, and divorce papers filed mutually within a month. And that's where my life really started to kick off. And it wasn't pretty. I was in a new place with just me and my daughter and my dogs. I didn't know who the fuck I was. I didn't know where I was going and what I was doing, but all I knew was I got out of the situation.
Yeah. Talk
Yeah.
about being uncomfortable. Talk about getting uncomfortable. That's the epitome of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I think that I went through that relationship as the pivotal moment, the last well, hopefully the last lesson that I needed before the
Yeah.
big change, you know. Um
Yeah.
I feel I'm at a point now where, after all of these years soul searching and trying to figure out who I am, I figured it the fuck out. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning more. Even going through the airport and on my solo trip to Peru and being alone in another country for 9 days, I learned a lot about myself that I didn't even know yet.
Oh,
Um,
empowering though. That's so empowering for you. And I'm so proud of you for that because I know codependency is hard to break because you think you can't do anything on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest, there was two big lessons that I learned on that trip. And I'm actually in the process of writing a blog of 39 things that I learned because I turned 39 while I was out there. But two of the things were that I can do things alone and imposter syndrome is real.
Oh, hell yeah. So much. So much.
Yeah. Yep.
So much. All right. So, and we talked a little bit about this, how has your relationship with yourself changed now, which we just talked about, how, you realize some things about yourself. What other things have you noticed? Especially, I want to talk a little bit more about codependency because that's something a lot of people don't talk about, but it is rampant in friendships. It's rampant in job. I mean, it's rampant everywhere, especially in relationships. And it's comfortable there, but it's really a hard place to be when there's so much meant for you out there.
Yeah, it is. Codependency codependency in my experience and everything that I've studied is a nervous system dysregulation. We learn this when we're a child. So what, for example, I my limiting belief and where my safety was disrupted is in abandonment issues. My dad picked up and left when I was 2 years old, and I didn't meet him until I was 12. Um, with that being said, I grew up not knowing who my dad was. Somebody was in my life and then just all of a sudden wasn't, right? So a lot of my codependency stems from people leaving abruptly. So the people pleaser in me and the validation in me, I will do everything that I have to. I will do what it takes to keep people in my life. And a lot of times that means losing myself in that, losing my identity, becoming a mirror image of who they want me to be. It's taken me a lot to use my voice and stand up tall and say, you know what? No, I don't leave me. I don't leave me. And that is one of the biggest things that I teach in some of my groups. I teach a class, emotional independence. It's called Boundless, and it's about how to become whole without the other person. How to become whole on your own. How to be worthy of your own love before you step into a relationship where you feel like that 2 year old that just lost somebody and you don't want somebody to go, you're not going to leave yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And not leaving yourself sometimes is hard at first. It's one of those things I think, especially with codependency and abandonment, because typically we leave ourselves and then because we're like, well, what can I do to get you to stay? Like, okay, I'll change. You don't say these things out loud, guys, by the way. Usually you just do it just routinely, like it's what you do. Um, but self-abandonment is huge, and we still all do it, not as much as we used to, but I think it's real easy for us to fall back into that, especially when we're people pleasers and we want people to be happy. I mean, we all want people to be happy, but people pleasers it's different.
Yeah, we're a little different. What kind of popped through my head when you were saying that is one of the biggest self-abandonment things that I think that we do is I feel like it's self-sabotaging. Our
Mm,
self-abandonment, I feel this is why we have an addiction epidemic. This is why we have everything going on in the world around us is because everyone has learned to abandon themselves. And then when they learn to abandon themselves, they learn how to fill a void because they're missing something. And I
mm.
feel like even with your podcast and being out there in the world and teaching people and having festivals like Break the Silence, like this is everybody coming together. This is synergy. This is everyone coming together and saying, hey, you're not alone in this. You do not have to abandon yourself anymore. There are people around you that have been going through the same thing, and we can get through this together.
Okay. I like that. I haven't thought about that before, but it's true. It's true. We all meet each other and we're like, hey, you know what? I kind of screwed up for everybody too. So, and this is what I've gone through. So let me tell you what works for me. And what I love about the communities coming together is what works for one may not work for the other. And we're all so different and so many different beliefs and if people will stop finding excuses, you'll find a person that can impact you if you just are open to it.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I believe that our stories, when we tell our stories and things that we have been through, and whoever in the world is listening, whoever in the universe is listening to us tell our stories, if they take one sentence, 3 words from whatever our story is, and that part resonates with them, we have all done our job. We have all done our job because then they're going to take that and they're going to use that as their seed to healing. And then they're going to grow through their situations and then hopefully tell their story. And it's just we're going to keep planting seeds.
Makes my heart so happy. That's it. It's like I feel like healing really begins with self-reflection and then telling your story. And sometimes you're healing out loud, right? You're telling your story and then someone else sees themselves in your story, kind of like a mirror. And then they're like, okay, well, that helped me. So let me do it. And it does. It just creates this big, beautiful community all across, all across. We need to impact far more.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Heal the masses
Yeah.
while we heal ourselves.
Yes, and it is healing. I talked about this the other night when I talked to Cam. It's like there's nothing more rewarding for me than seeing the chains break free from someone. They're like, I finally get it, because someone could sit here and tell you something 100 different times, and then the next person could say it 100 different times, but the right person will say it the right way, and you get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get it. And that's where it really begins. What does stability and peace mean to you now? How important is it to you?
Stability and peace is my foundation because I cannot be who I am without it. I stability and peace. I went, we'll say, I don't even know, 30 plus years without knowing what stability and peace was. Um, and now that I have it, it is sacred to me. My energy, uh, I I do everything that I can to protect my energy. I also do everything that I can to nourish my energy because if I get myself into a space where I'm depleted, then I can't help others, right? We have to, like the saying goes, fill our cups so that we can fill the cups for others.
And that's valid and it's necessary. I've tried just to do this stuff without having a full cup, because we still get caught up in life and you get to where you're like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And it's not that you don't want to do it anymore. You want to. Your soul needs nourishment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where self-care comes in. You know, I couldn't stress more how important self-care is. And I use the cliche, if you're on an airplane, you got to put the oxygen on yourself first before you can save anybody else, right? So that's what self-care is. It's not going out and getting your nails done. It's not, doing your hair and getting your eyebrows done and tattoos. Self-care is different. Self-care is going in and doing the inner work, taking the time to meditate, taking the time to talk to a therapist, to do shadow work, to journal, to step into the unknown and situations where you're uncomfortable so that you can grow through being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, some also doing your nails and all that stuff, but
I mean, self care sometimes is tattoos and stuff, but that's, yeah, self love and self care are things that, again, that abandonment a lot of times, and I'll say, especially as women, it's easy because we get caught up. Everybody gets caught up easy, but I know us as women, we tend to, especially as moms and things like that, it's everybody else comes first. And so it's a little different when you're talking about self-care. Could mean that you're walking to the mailbox and putting your feet to the grass and just having a moment. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant either. So
yeah, yeah. And on the topic of just having those moments, self-care is also taking yourself to a rage room and bashing the shit out of anything you can get your hands on because you need an outlet for that anger.
true. So I know you work with NAS Recovery Solutions. What are some ways that you stay grounded while still teaching and mentoring and coaching?
Self-care. um, I meditate. I meditate daily. I go inward. I look at the things that I need to change about myself and um, things that I'm doing in my life. Meditation is mental creation, right? We can't effectively help others. Um, we can't really envision our future unless we take time. And when I say meditate, I mean from daydreaming to sitting in a Zen position, whatever meditation looks like for you. My meditation might look different than a lot of other people's meditation, but it's really taking the time to go inward and envisioning my next move, my next part of my life, things that my future self, that I do. Outside of that, in order to nourish my soul and myself, I do photography. I travel. That is my self-care. I go to hot springs. I do all sorts of different activities. I make sure that I'm showing myself love too. That way I feel good when I step out into the community and I teach, or I step on social media and I'm creating content, whatever it is. I like to make sure that my whole heart is into it. And on those days where I feel completely depleted, what they call passion fatigue, I make sure that I take some time to myself. I make sure that I go do something that's going to bring my spark back.
Yeah. And that's something that others can look at you, especially when we're talking about authenticity, is you don't have to be perfect. Everybody thinks you have to be perfect, or a lot of people think you have to be perfect doing social media, doing podcasts, doing shows, coaching, and all those things. But the authentic part about that is sometimes you're like, fuck this.
Sometimes it is very hard. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, I just want to crawl under a rock, or I don't want to wake up, or something's not right. That moment we realize that we feel something isn't right is when we need to take a step back, go offline, and just take care of ourselves. And even if that means just screaming into the void while you're drinking a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and it's valuable to show up in fullness and authentic because other people then can see like, oh, well, Brooke and Kitty get really pissed off and just want to go to bed and stay there for 12 days. It's real. That's real stuff.
Yeah, 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 it is real. But it's important to also show people that you got to pick yourself up and you just got to keep
Oh,
on going. Take the time to go offline and take care of you, but keep going because otherwise we end up self-sabotaging and we get back into self-abandonment, right?
yeah, no, it's true. We we like to say you're allowed to go there, you just aren't allowed to stay. That's what we
Yeah.
say. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So you work with NAS Recovery Solutions. How has that work impacted your life and how's it just impacted those around you?
So working with NAS actually completely changed my life. I was, I went through that divorce and I was still during all that time in my IT career. I still did not feel like I had a sense of purpose. Some doors opened up for me and I started working with NAS. I completely left my job in IT on a whim of faith that this was going to work out. And my life completely shifted from scarcity mode, as in, I have to do this alone and my life is a complete struggle, to abundance and synergy and abundance and you do not have to do this life alone. There's a whole community. My work with NAS has impacted me in such a positive way and grounding way, um, that I honestly I couldn't see life any different. There was a lot of things that I had forgotten through my years of all of my struggles, my battles, even going through prison, and learning the 7 habits of highly effective people. I actually started teaching 7 habits. I'm a facilitator with NAS, and I brought it back into my life. I feel like I've made so many positive changes, and I've been able to help so many people with my story and my classes that it's been amazing and purposeful. Um, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. If someone is listening, is in a place that you once were, what would you want them to hear from this conversation?
You are not alone. Um, I would want them to hear that you are not alone, and whatever it is that you're going through, there's a community out there that has gone through it too. Um, we don't have to be alone in any of our situations. There's always somebody that you can reach out to before you hit that breaking point, before you feel like you're going to hit 100 miles an hour going around a corner on a cliff, before you feel like you're going to pick up that needle or that drink. There is a community out there that you just haven't found yet, and we're all waiting for you. And you're going to step into your purpose. You just have to grow through the bullshit first.
Sift through it all and come on. Come
Yep.
on.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you this last question. If this chapter in your life had a title, what would you call it?
Growth. No. The worthy sunflower.
The Worthy Sunflower.
The worthy
Nice.
son.
I love that. Sunflowers are significant, but that's a funny synchronicity. I saw today that when you give someone a sunflower, you should never give them just one. You should always give them two because when the sun goes out, they turn towards each other so they can share the light and share the warmth.
That's why the worthy sunflower.